This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Good evening, race fans, and welcome to coverage of the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series on the iRacing Esports Network, live tonight from Daytona International Speedway in Daytona Beach, Florida. I am James Pike, the voice of Podium Esports, alongside Mr. Taylor Varus, and with our producer, as always, Mr. Cisco Scaramouza, punching the buttons in the virtual production trailer. Taylor, this is a road course that I think everybody knows, especially within the PCA. This is a road course that people within the PCA Sim Racing Series know, especially the returners from Series 1 as we ended our season in April here at the World Center of Racing. This is a track that you know well, being a Florida native, but even with all the familiarity, this is a place that can still be tough to get around and still throw people for a loop or make people go around in a loop, depending on how you drive.
Definitely, indeed. And good evening, everyone. Welcome, of course, to the World Center of Racing, Daytona International Speedway. This track is by far a very difficult track, even though for those experienced sim racers or road racing fans here, this track will provide difficulties as far as such as handling such areas as transitioning from a flat part of the racetrack up to a banking part of the racetrack that we'll see, especially through several different parts of the racetrack. And then, of course, this just a very interesting way of handling different points of the racetrack. We'll be seeing drivers handling at different high speeds, as well as handling certain areas that will be very difficult for these drivers. I'm looking forward to them racing here at my home track, especially with these beautiful Porsche 911s.
And the 911 RSRs, we are GTLM and or GTE racing, depending on whether or not you follow the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship or the World Endurance Championship a little bit more. In either case, you know the car very well. And I think you bring up a good point in that it is a tricky place because you go so fast in some parts and so slow in others. And I think, especially when you watch broadcasts of the Rolex 24 here, you hear so many people talk about being able to set up a car for the infield or set up the car for the NASCAR turns, and that you can't really ever get it completely right for both sections of the racetrack. You just sort of have to pick one and go with it. As we take a look at the number 18 machine of Carlos Lopez completing his qualifying. But Taylor, just a really tricky place to nail the setup. It really is all about the balance here, more so than I think you see at a lot of other tracks.
It is. I mean, you have to think about it. Drivers are going to have to pick and choose which would be the best place to show that speed they need. Do they want to be trying to be the faster part in the infield section of the road course, or do they want to have the speed as well as utilizing some of the drafting capabilities here on the oval section of the track? So drivers we're going to have to keep an eye on is those who have the best balance, like we were just discussing about. And I'm pretty sure that some of these drivers have already shown incredible amounts of speed. I mean, Gresham Wagner currently right now is our pole sitter with a 141.42. So he has definitely shown that he's got the speed needed, as we will probably see a lot of our front runners running in the 140s into the 141s as well. So this is going to be definitely interesting to see as one of our top front runners for the series, which would be one of the Levesque gentlemen. It's going to be very difficult, interesting what he can do tonight.
Leon Levesque won the first two races of this PCA SRS and currently has the top time in qualifying for the third race of the evening. And we'll see if he can go 3 for 3 here a little bit later on tonight. But Gresham Wagner, Michael Polasek, John Cook, all drivers who had speed last Friday night at Road America who were up there. Wagner in particular was in line for a podium finish until he got into trouble right in the really tight section of Road America, the 567 complex that is so narrow, and it ended his bid for the win. But we will bring in William Levesque right now as our pre-race interview for this evening. And William, just talk a little bit about how you got involved in sim racing to begin with.
Well, my dad's been racing for over 20 years, back in the 80s and the early 90s. So I guess my my love from racing comes from there, I suppose. And as far as sim racing, obviously, ever since I was 3 years old, I've been playing racing games. So from there, I guess it just got more serious. And I started in 2011 on R Factor.
So you haven't really made too much of a jump. It's been very particularly involved simulators from the get-go. I
Well,
presume that
yeah, I
no,
mean,
go ahead, go
it
ahead.
was the classic Gran Turismo and Forza, and when I got a computer able to properly run games, then I started proper sim racing.
But you still made that jump relatively early. Now, I'm guessing that sports car racing has to be at least up there, and Porsche racing has to be up there as far as favorite categories, favorite series. I'm guessing you watched a lot of that when you were younger, and you still watch a lot of that now.
Yeah, uh, yeah. I remember in the middle of the night when my dad used to mostly fall asleep watching endurance races, and I just hang around. Uh, Probably the only nights where I was allowed to stay up, actually, back when I was young.
Fair, can't argue that. Are there any other categories or series that you enjoy watching besides endurance racing and sports car racing?
Uh, well, obviously I watch Formula One because it's more accessible, I guess, and it's Formula One. So, but you usually, I mean, I'll watch the odd IndyCar race or bit of rallycross or whatever I can get my hands on. Depends what I'm doing.
So long as it's got a road course, it's going to be suitable on TV. It sounds like.
Yeah, usually I prefer turning both sides.
Fair. Before we let you go and get ready for tonight's race, William, just take a moment to thank your sponsors and let everyone know who makes it happen for you.
Yeah, I won't forget the guys this time. The SimuCube guys and SimLab V Racing and my teammates at NX Racing and Fast Track actually for the pole position awards. I haven't thanked them yet, but seems like I'm gonna get another $50.
You're about 2 minutes away from earning those extra $50. So we'll let you go, wait it out, and get yourself prepared for tonight's race. But William, thank you so much for coming up to the booth and spending some time with us. Best of luck tonight, and who knows, maybe we'll be talking to you again once we finish up the race and take the checkered flag.
All right, thanks.
There is William Levesque, winner of the first two races of Series 2 of the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series, and your points leader as we take a look at Daytona International Speedway. You look at the overlay of this track and the outline of this track of the track map. It's pretty straightforward around the NASCAR bit. You've got the one bus stop chicane right before you get to turn 3 or NASCAR 3. But you got the infield that can be tricky. The long, almost double apex entrance into turn 1 that takes you through the S's into turn 2, right past the pit exit, and then the International Horseshoe and the second horseshoe. I think the Sunset Horseshoe is officially the name, separated by the dogleg before you hit the carousel turn 6 to get back out onto the banking and into NASCAR 1. It feels like it's a lot of high-speed areas, but you've got to get on the brakes, got to get on the binders pretty well in a lot of places as well at Daytona, Taylor.
Most definitely. And that turn 6 is by far probably have to be one of the most difficult corners like we brought out. I mean, you're having to come in at a very high speed and then just drop it down a couple of gears just to get ready to go back up onto NASCAR 1. It's very easy to lose the car under braking. And then, of course, the inner loop, as we see live on screen as we're on board, that section of the track is also a very critical point to try to get as much speed as you can to make it through NASCAR's 3 and 4 and make the run at the start-finish line and, of course, start another lap here. With an hour race here tonight, it's going to be critical for drivers to determine when will be that time to see pit stops. And talking to some of the drivers and listening to some of their strategies, I've even heard some drivers considering a 3-stop race would be best.
We had that happen a lot last week. A lot of drivers got caught out by the fuel consumption of these 911 RSRs right at the end of the race at Road America. And Matthew Kikis was able to jump onto the podium by stretching his fuel out and making it a one-stop race, as did your winner, William Levesque, who, as we turn to the track and we turn to the starting grid for tonight's race, is indeed the Fast Track Sims Pole Position Award winner. He will get the bragging rights along with another $50 courtesy of Fast Track Sims. If you're not familiar with Fast Track Sims and the high-quality simulator cockpits they produce, go and visit them at fasttracksims.com for more information. Levesque is your pole sitter once again out of the Rennsport region with a 1:41.404 time to place itself P1. Gresham Wagner will start from second. Third will be Michael Polishek out of the northern New Jersey region. John Cook out of the Chicago region will roll off in fourth. Fifth belongs to Leif Peterson. James Patak in that famous yellow plaid 911 will start from sixth. Seventh will be Matthew Kikis, fresh off his first podium in PCA SRS competition last week at Road America. James Huth rolls off from eighth. Jeff C. will roll off with the ninth position, and John Malia will begin tonight's race from 10th.
Jason Lisner will start in the 11th position, followed by Chris Pies in 12th, with Doug Metzel in 13th. Brett Holmes will start in the 14th position, with Michelle Levesque in 15th. Jonathan Schum will start in 16th position, followed by David Stewart in 17th. Clifton Lipple will start in 18th, followed by Dewey Kang in 19th, and Charles Yao will round out your top 20.
21st will be Cameron Leslie. Mark Hofford starts from 22nd. 23rd will be the 44 of Alberto Fonseca. Shaibo Banyo-Padilla will start from 24th. 25th, the 18 of Carlos Lopez. Michael Dyden starts in 26th. Jake Steinbrink rolls off from 27th. 28th will be Richard Franco. Matthew Mitchell starts from 29th. And shotgun on the field starting in 30th will be the 30 car of Jeffrey Smith. Once again, this is Daytona International Speedway, and we race on the road course tonight. It is a 3.56 mile, 5.73 kilometer circuit with 12 turns in total. We'll be racing in the afternoon to dusk. And I would say a little bit later than that. Our current in-sim time is iRacing Day, May 15, 2019, the default day for races in sim. It is just after 7 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time locally in sim. And it is going to be a great night of racing here on the iRacing Esports Network. We're glad you're with us for round 3 of Series 2 of the PCA SRS. As the pace car pulls off, we turn to William Levesque. All eyes on him to see if he can go 3 for 3 in that 144 as we are underway. Green flag is out of Daytona, and he and Gresham Wagner will lead the field down into this oh-so-tricky turn 1 where you've got to roll the brakes. You just can't mash them. It's so easy to get into trouble there, but it looked like everybody got through there clean, and they start beginning to string themselves out as they make their way through the S's into the International Horseshoe.
Great start for pretty much everyone. I believe Michael Knighton decided to back off as we have a car off the track going into turn the International Horseshoe right there, but decides to back up. That's going to be Shaibala as he just now gets right up in front of Jeffrey Smith, but is able to make no contact, continues on the track as the rest of the field goes single file as they head to the Western Horseshoe.
Everybody all sorting themselves out in the middle of the field, but the front 5 or 6 have taken off very nicely. Levesque, Wagner, Polishek, Cook, Peterson, all in good shape. They've put some distance on James Patak and that famed yellow plaid machine, arguably the most famous livery in this PCA SRS with the yellow wheels. He's really the first car in the first battle pack on track. You've got Patak, Matthew Kikis, James Huth, Jeff C., and John Malia all together, and Malia in particular fighting off a driver who won this race in Series 1. Got the season finale victory in Series 1 of the PCA SRS in April from Daytona. Jason Lisner in the 982 out of the First Settlers region. You recognize that blue and orange paint scheme, that livery very well. If you watch any of Series 1, he spent a lot of time running up near the front of the field, so no surprise that he's come back again to try and jump to the front.
He is closing in on the back bumper of John Malia as they're coming down through the front straightaway into the dog leg here into turn 1. He's going to possibly take a look to the outside, but does not. Decides to back off just a little bit so that way they can make it to turn 1 as we have a pass for the lead. Nope, just a battle for the lead between Gresham Wagner as he is caught up to William Levesque.
Battle for the lead. Wagner and Levesque have separated themselves from the rest of this group, but not too much space in between them as everybody's now single file for the most part here at Daytona. Not too many side-by-side battles to speak of yet, but they are coming. There will be plenty of them, and Wagner is not letting Levesque get away. We saw the kind of speed that he had. He, too, like Jason Lisner, comes from the First Settlers region of the PCA. That stretch from Virginia Beach and Norfolk all the way up to the state capital of Richmond. Pretty solid when it comes to producing quick drivers in the PCA SRS. Wagner going to try and get his first victory here tonight if he can bring home the checkered flag in an hour's time. But for the moment, just sitting about maybe 3 or 4 car lengths behind the 144 Levesque and waiting to see if he might have an opportunity to pass Levesque going into the bus stop as he inches ever closer, but he gets on the brakes earlier. So he might be trying to set something up for turns 3 and 4, at least NASCAR 3 and 4, and maybe something into turn 1 on this road course too.
He's definitely going to try something as they're going through NASCAR's turns 3 and 4 right now. Difficult, just got to be careful through the bus stop chicane. With that section, if you go a little bit too much off hitting the grass, that will give you a time penalty and you have to back off. But here comes Gresham Wagner now with the slipstream to try to close that back gap. Is now car length separating the two drivers as they now hit the braking zone to go into turn 1. There you see Levesque get laid into the braking almost. He gets a little bit loose. Is he going to be able to hold on to the car? Here comes Wagner now as he's going to take a look now before they get to the International Horseshoe, but has to not make the pass work. Have to wait till they come out of there probably to make a pass.
Levesque didn't have the greatest of entries to the corners. He didn't get through the International Horseshoe well that time behind. So now Wagner side by side with Levesque for the race lead, but he'll probably have to see the track position as they go through the dogleg into Sunset Bend, the other horseshoe here. There's Levesque again a little bit deeper into the corner than Wagner was, and Wagner gets the better run out of the corner. The Wagner sidestepped and got a little bit loose on corner exit as they work their way through the carousel. Now back into the bank part of the racetrack. How about a NASCAR turn 1? Still just that car length or 2, but we'll see if Wagner can use the slipstream this time to make a pass on Levesque and maybe take the race lead away. They'll get a good run coming out of 2 down the backstretch.
He's going to try to have to make it work before they get to the bus stop. It's got very good idea to make a pass going into there. Can't really take it 2x2, and it will cause possibly some contact as they now go into the bus stop chicane. It's still going to be Levesque holding on over Gresham Wagner as they come out of there, and he still stays about the same distance as they came out. I think Wagner lost a little bit of time, but he's going to try it again as they go through NASCAR 3 and 4, see if he can close the gap and make the pass before they get into turn 1.
I can't tell at this point because Wagner had the run to get to the inside of Levesque and the bus stop, and now he'll go to the outside of Levesque coming down the front straightaway, and I think Wagner is going to lead the lap by maybe a nose, maybe a hood over Levesque, but indeed it was Wagner getting the lead lap, and now big move there. Oh! Contact between Polisek and Levesque. Contact between, Polisek and Wagner, excuse me. Polisek and Wagner get together going into the International Horseshoe, so Wagner goes around. Polisek will take the time penalty and slow down, and it will be all Levesque at the front of this field. And the battle now is for second between Polisek and Cook and company, but a big move there to shake things up at the beginning of this race.
It definitely shook a lot of things up. I believe that dropped the likes of Gresham Wagner pretty much right outside the top 10 right now. I think maybe 11th after getting that lead just before they went into turn 1. Now he's got a lot of work to do, but thankfully it is early in the race, so he can probably figure a way to work his way up through the field with a little strategy.
Waiting to see if race control is going to penalize Polisek. That was on review not nearly as bad as it looked. When I slowed down and took a peek at it in slow-mo, he just barely got into the left rear of Wagner's machine. So it wasn't a lot of contact, but I definitely can see the case where race control might issue a penalty for causing a collision to the number 45 machine, and we will just have to wait and see if he ends up coming down pit road to serve it or if he gets a time penalty. We'll wait for race control to pass us the ruling on that one. But as it stands, Polisek is in second. The bad news is that he's a solid 2 seconds behind race leader Levesque.
As Levesque comes across the line, we'll take a look, see what that gap will be. It is now at 2.1 from him and Polisek as they go down into turn 1. Levesque has a little bit of issue, goes a little bit wide going into turn 1, but still is able to maintain the gap But right now, Polasek has to keep an eye on John Cook, who has been putting the pressure on as the penalty has been given out.
And Polasek will get the black flag and have to serve a drive-through penalty for his contact with Gresham Wagner. So that is going to move John Coke up into the second spot. Leif Peterson, that is, will take over third. And fourth will then go to James Huth, who is right ahead of your first really good battle pack on track. You've got James Patak, Matthew Kikas, John Malia, Gresham Wagner back here in this with Jason Lisner, the two first Settlers drivers running nose to tail. Patak also there, Kikas from the Carolina region, and John Malia too. All these drivers with PCA experience, all these drivers who know this group, know this series pretty well, and all drivers that I think are going to have a lot of fun putting on a show. Patak is one of the drivers from the Peach State region, which has more participants in this PCA SRS than any other region in the whole of PCA. As we take a peek at all these drivers going after it.
They are definitely going to go at it as they come out of the bus stop chicane. Now, it is still going to be Patak leading this group of cars in front of him as they're catching up to that fifth place car of James Huth as they're going through NASCAR's turn 3 and 4 right now. Here comes Matthew Kikas, though, on the attack to get to James Patak on the outside as they come off of NASCAR turn 4. Let's see what he's able to do before they get to the start-finish line. He's going to take a look to the outside, and there he will go, try to see if he can hold on. Patak's got a little bit of blockage right there as they go into turn 1. Patak laid into the braking zone to try to see if he can hold off the Matthew Kikas, and now he will look to the inside of James Huth, who goes a little bit wide, but is able to hold on to that position.
Big battle a little bit further back. You've got Kikas and John Malia going at it along with Gresham Wagner. Kikas from Carolina, Malia from the metropolitan New York region of the PCA, and then the two first Settlers region drivers are Wagner and Lisner right there behind them as they nearly go nose to tail 3x3 in there into the Sunset Horseshoe. Big move from Wagner, though, to get underneath Malia and take the spot with ease. So he'll jump up another position, trying to go after Kikas as Wagner makes his charge back to the front of the field. And if you are curious, Podolsek is back on track after his penalty, but he currently runs in the 17th position from second. So minus 15, 16 spots. That will go a long way towards hampering his evening, and it's just going to be damage control, I think, from here on out for Podolsek for the most part.
Gresham Wagner's got a great run on Matthew Kikas as they come out of NASCAR turn 2 down the Daytona super stretch before they get to the bus stop chicane. Let's see what Wagner does. He will outbrake the likes of Kikas into the bus stop chicane and get a great run off of there. He could actually get to James Patak just before they come out of NASCAR's turn 3 and 4 right now. As he's coming up to the back bumper, he's going to try to find a way to get by that yellow plaid Porsche 911 RSR. He's going to look to the outside. Might get it, but can't quite make it work. Going to duck right back behind.
Got to break it and then get it back and see if he can get a slipstream maybe underneath. No, maybe on the top side this time. Not having much more luck up there is Gresham Wagner. So we'll see if he decides to dive it deep into the corner, which he does. We'll see if he can outbreak James Patak in the corner, but can't quite get it done. They'll be side by side, and Wagner's going to fall right back in line behind Patak as they go through the S's and work their way through the International Horseshoe. Fierce battle here with Kikas and Wagner now. Kikas looks at the outside, and then Malia and Jason Lisner also having their own little battle behind this. So this quintet of cars putting on a pretty good show early on in this round for the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series.
It is. Here they go. Wagner now into the inside of Patak as they go through the Western Horseshoe. And I think he might make it stick as they come off. Move him up to the 5th position now as he makes the run to turn 6.
Patak knew that Wagner's got oodles and oodles of pace right now. Driving a little bit angrier than normal just with the way he was spun by Podolsek early in this race, and certainly wants to make up for that and doing a pretty solid job of it. Last time by, Wagner threw down a very, very quick 142.795. So all kinds of pace for Wagner. And now I think especially with the clear track, this should just get easier as Kikas goes through the grass. And I think he'll have to check out for a little bit. Serve the time penalty of about 2 to 3 seconds. That'll allow Malia and Lisner to get by. So this group, I think, has finally sorted itself out. And I think at this point we can maybe slide a little bit further back in the field, but also take a moment to talk about all the madness that's going to take place with the pit stops as we slide back towards Jonathan Schumann, Alberto Fonseca of the Ring of Battle on track. Taylor, we saw last week at Road America how there were some drivers that prepared for fuel conservation and managed to run with that in mind for the whole of that race and made it on one stop, race winner William Levesque included. But it's a little bit more difficult to save fuel here since you spend so much time at speed around the NASCAR section of this road course. It's going to be very difficult, I think, for drivers to make it on one stop. There's a chance that we see some drivers go two stopping and maybe try and do the splash and dash right at the end of this, like we saw so many drivers in the top 10 do last week at Road America. And I figure there may also be some people who try and go three stops and just run bonsai pace the whole time and see if they can make it all up on that and make sure they don't lose too much on the pit stops as Doom gives up a position to Fonseca. So the Pacific Northwest region driver jumps up another spot. Fonseca now up to 18th.
Most definitely we'll be seeing that. I mean, I wouldn't be surprising if we see some drivers even decide to take tires. And usually most of these drivers have not taken tires for this track due to the fact that it's only an hour race. These tires will hold up pretty well in a stint. But Wagner, though, is off in the inner loop. He makes a big mistake through there. Sorry about that. He is able to get back out on track, though, but he has lost all that position he's worked so hard to gain, as he will now lose position to Doug Metzel and the likes of Christopher Pies.
Credit to Wagner for making sure that he kept it off the inside retaining wall right there by the bus stop. But you're right. All that time that Wagner had gained, he just gave right back to the rest of the field. And it's been a torrid start to this race for the driver of the number 5 machine, who certainly has the speed to match the likes of Levesque and Cook and Peterson and Kepler, but just hasn't had the consistency so far tonight at Daytona, and he'll have to work his way back up to the front again, starting with Christopher Pines.
He's going to have to make quick work of him, but also try to not use too many mistakes, as he already had one mistake now under his belt with also the contact of Polasek. As there now comes out of the International Horseshoe, he will get by the likes of Christopher Pies now and set his sights on the likes of Doug Metzel.
So Metzel is next for Gresham Wagner, who's got a ways to go as he might have maybe 6, 7, 8 car lengths on Wagner at the moment, does Pies, but I have a feeling that he might be in for a battle before too long, as Pies is one of the drivers from the Lone Star region of the PCA. One of the drivers who shares a region with the series right-hand man Doug Atkinson, who himself is also a member of the Lone Star region, but that covers Houston, Texas, and the greater Houston metropolitan area, going up north to about the College Station range. So if you like maroon and you like Aggies, probably not a bad place to be, I would think, if you're a member of the PCA, although I know there are definitely going to be a few people who like a bit more of a burnt orange shade that won't be so happy with me for saying that at the moment. But in the meantime, you've got Pies and Metzel all together, along with Wagner fighting for position. We'll slide a little bit further back, just trying to look through this field and see where the battles are. Make sure that we run through the whole group and show you all the good battles on the racetrack. You've got Dewey Kang and Matthew Mitchell coming down the front straight away and nose to tail. This would be for the 20th and the 21st positions, as Mitchell tries to get around Kang in the, call it Brumos-inspired Porsche. Certainly, definitely not going to miss that particular 911 with those racing stripes. Almost impossible to say that.
Pretty much, and most definitely, that's the car that's won some of the most races here at Daytona, that Brumos Porsche livery, as far as being Porsche also winning the most Rolex 24s here at Daytona International Speedway with 17 victories. So you definitely know for sure that Porsche is absolutely a dominant figure when it comes to this race.
They have such a storied history here across so many different classes in the history of the 24 Hours of Daytona. As we flip back to Fonseca and look what He's up to just at the racetrack. He and Jonathan Shu still at it once again. And Fonseca got a really good run on Shu this time. He'll go to the bottom before they even get to the backstretch. And it might be a case where if Fonseca pulls back up, Shu may get a bit of a tow here and may have the chance to get back around Fonseca coming down the front stretch. But Fonseca got a really good run down the backstretch and actually opened it up on Shu by about 4, 5, 6 car lengths. The Pacific Northwest driver coming out of the Seattle area, doing a very nice job to clear Schum and lock down the 18th position. Schum, for the record, is also one of the Carolinas region drivers, along with Matthew Kikas.
Look at the likes of Jason Lisner right now, who's worked his way up through the field. He's now running in that 7th position in a battle with the likes of James Huth, John Malia, and James Patak. This is that battle for the 5th position overall in the class, as they're now working their way into turn 6. Lisner got a little bit loose coming out of the Western Horseshoe, but is able to catch back up as they transition up to NASCAR's turns 1 and 2 in that Gulf livery-inspired Porsche 911 RSR, another famed paint scheme that we see here with the Porsche brand. And as we're getting word from our race control, looks like Matthew Mitchell has had an incident on track, but is able to continue on. But still looking on to this battle for 5th position. James Patak holding off as they go through the bus stop chicane. He's able to pull a little bit of a gap over Malia as well as Huth, as Lisner now is starting to drop back just a little bit.
Just a little bit, but not all that much. But you've got a good group in here. You've got Patak for the Peach State, Malia from the Metropolitan New York, Huth from the Hudson Champlain region, and then Lisner from the First Settlers as Malia comes to the outside of Patak, tries to get the position. I think he'll have it at the line, but is he going to have it once they clear turn 1? Had it by inches. Wasn't much, but it's going to slide wide and go way, way wide, but also arc it in nicely. Take a narrow angle out of turn 1, and John Malia now up into 4th over Patak. Huth will be next, and Lisner's right there too. And this quartet is without question your best battle on track at the moment.
As they come out of the International Horseshoe, John Malia is starting to pull a little bit of a gap as they head towards the kink right there. And got about a 2-car length lead over Patak as they now hit the Western Horseshoe. There you see Patak laid into the braking zone. Try to see if he can close that gap. Can't quite stick it into the inside, though, but is going to follow suit as James Huth is closing in as well. These three are starting to get really dicey now as they go into turn 6. Nose to tail for these three drivers as Lisner looks on.
Zach had to catch it a little bit in the Sunset Horseshoe just to make sure that he didn't sidestep that 911. Had to sort of bobble and then caught it on corner entry one more time, but that cost him some track position, so he won't have a run on Malia going into the bus stop. But on the flip side, James Huth will have a run on James Patak going into the bus stop. Don't think it's going to end up being any sort of pass, though. Patak actually got in way deeper than I thought he would. He'll lose a ton of time to Malia, who I think might have checked up a little bit earlier than Huth was expecting. And now Jason Lisner will go to the top side of Huth as Patak checked up and slowed up Huth. And now Lisner and Huth are side by side trying to fight amongst each other to figure out who's going to go after James Patak.
Lisner decided to drop back, slot in behind the lights of Huth to get a run down. There he goes as they go down the front straightaway into the tri-oval. I think Lisner might be able to get in front of him when they cross the line to move up to 6, but who will be the bravest one going into turn 1? Lisner is going to try to do it. He's going to try to get to Patak as well, but can't quite make it stick for him right there as he easily slots in front of James Huth as they come through the S's and make their way towards the International Horseshoe. As they go into there, it's now going to be Huth now looking to the inside, but can't quite make it work as they come out of there. He has to back off to continue his run.
While that group battles it out, we'll take a moment to remind you that the setups for tonight's PCA Sim Racing Series 2 event have been graciously provided by Santa McCullough, the Setups for iRacing. Join the Setups for iRacing Discord server for quality iRacing setups. In addition, the Porsche Club of America would like to recognize and thank the PCA Sim Racing Steering Committee for their efforts to create an engaging year of sim racing for all PCA members. The committee for this series includes Doug Atkinson out of the Lone Star region, Michael Nyden out of the Peach State region, William Yu from the Los Angeles region, Liam Rositas from the Upper Canada region, and Andrew Elsom from the Peach State region. PCA thanks these members for their time and their dedication to develop PCA sim racing.
And you know what, James? People want to probably know, what does it take to get behind the wheel and join the fun? Well, you got to learn how to get started in the PCA sim racing by visiting PCAsimracing.org and click on the two-part series, Getting Started in PCA Sim Racing, at the bottom of the website. There is still time to sign up for the upcoming 3-hour endurance race in Series 3. Visit www.PCAsimracing.org for more information.
And you can, if you've got a PCA membership, join all these drivers in the fun and tackle a lot of really interesting road courses throughout North America. You should test yourself against some of the best sim racers in the Porsche Club of America, starting with Watkins Glen 1 week from tonight. That's where we'll be next Friday night, running the Booch up at New York's Thunder Road. So if you got any interest in hopping on, go visit simracing.pca.org for more information. Still a really solid battle between this group, but we've got our first driver on pit road, and it's the 06 of Brett Holmes, who comes down for service and is done with pit road, and at least for the moment, good to go. But the pit window is open. That's something we're going to have to pay attention to tonight. Who goes and makes it a 2-stop race? Who makes it a 1-stop race? Who makes it a 3-stop race? That's the question.
Only time will tell right now, as we're almost approaching towards the halfway point here in a few short moments, as John Koch now is starting to try to close that gap on Leif Peterson. He just got past from him a few moments ago, but now he is going to be back on the attack now as they come out of NASCAR turn 4 now. He's got a head of steam. He's going to look to the outside as they come across the start-finish line here, and I think Koch might be able to do it as we see Leif Peterson back off.
Peterson is going to back off and let.
He's got a problem.
As Peterson, I think, might be trying to stretch his fuel a little bit more. That, I think, would be the answer to this question. That's why all of a sudden John Koch has been able to run him down and just blitz by him. Normally that wouldn't happen, but I think Peterson might be trying to stretch this to make sure he can make this a 1-stop race.
I tell you what, that is quite a strategy call for him. I mean, I've never seen it done that far in advance into a corner, even with fuel strategy saving. So it's going to be keeping an eye on Leif Peterson, seeing how well he is going to be able to do here tonight.
Although that's part of the challenge of Series 2 of the PCA, and it's something that Doug and company made sure to emphasize to these drivers at the beginning of this series, that this is not supposed to be easy. The challenges in this series are modeled after real-world endurance racing, of which pit stops and fuel strategy and all are a very natural part of the process. So these drivers just have to be very, very careful in how they go about it. This isn't necessarily supposed to be an hour of you just run flat out and he who has the fastest pace gets to bring home the checkered flag and the trophy. There's a little bit more strategy involved in that, because sim racing and endurance racing, sports car racing, quite simply, is not that complex.
Let's take a look at Peterson right now. He's coming up through the corner. Let's see how well he sounds and how early he lets off on the racetrack as he's coming up through NASCAR's turn 3 and 4. He's soon going to be letting off pretty early. I think right around the pit road entrance is when he's going to start letting off.
That plus the short shifting he did in turns 3 and 4 last time. He got up to top gear very, very quickly. He's already off it before he gets to the start-finish line. And it's just sort of laying on the clutch for a bit, not even using the brakes all that much, just sort of laying off things. As we've got that group right behind him, Amalia, Patak, and Lizard, and Hoot, that we talk so much about. They still can't separate each other, and it is without question the best group on the racetrack for a battle so far. And it may include Leif Peterson here within the next lap or two, depending on how he decides to make this fuel run.
He's going to try everything right now. And also, if you think about it, these drivers who are drafting to the back bumper of John Malia, they're saving a little bit of fuel. Maybe not as much as we see Leif Peterson doing, but just a tad bit of fuel is helping them save. Unlike John Malia, who's leading that pack, he's going to have to pit probably a little bit sooner than these other drivers.
You would think, but we'll wait and see. I'm not necessarily convinced, but then again, I don't really know much of what's going on. But say or besides the fact that we know that Peterson is trying to stretch this out to make this a one-stop race, and I would imagine that Levesque, after his fuel conservation at Road America 1 week ago, is probably in the same boat. So I think Levesque and Peterson probably one stop bring Cuck, and then I would think with the way they've gone racing, you would like to think that Malia, Patak, Lisner, Huth, and company, Kikas even too, would all be looking at one stop and then another stop right at the end of
Levesque
the
is
first
pitting.
flash of dance. As William Levesque is going to go down pit road earlier than most. So makes me wonder if we're going to see a few more people. Gut comes in this. Peterson is going to stay out, I think, and then Malia is going to lead all four of those cars in as Huth drove it deep into pit road, nearly ended up shooting past the commitment cone, but made it in one piece, and everybody all the way back to Gresham Wagner in ninth, and then I think that might have been Doug Metzel in 10th as well. Chris Pies in 11th.
Well.
Pretty much everybody. Polisek staying out. He's the only one of this group that will, but he had the pit stop as part of that stop and go penalty from the beginning of the race, so that's why Polisek isn't in pit road just yet. Waiting on Clifton Lipple, who comes in. So just about everybody coming in. Here comes Alberto Fonseca from 15th. Jeff C. coming in from 16th. Jonathan Schum and Jeffrey Smith. Schum is going to stay out. Smith is going to come in. Brett Holmes is going to stay out. Cameron Leslie is going to come in. David Stewart's already made a pit stop. Waiting next on Matthew Mitchell. That very bright neon and pink and purple color car. He'll come in for service. Carlos Lopez and Michael Knighton may well come in for service too. But I think that's very interesting that pretty much everybody in the field came in on this particular lap.
It is very interesting that they came just shy of about halfway mark as we see what will happen and how far of a gap the likes of Leif Peterson will be able to hold off William Levesque and when he will come down pit road. Is he going to stay out a little bit longer? As we have a battle with James.
Is this going to be? All eyes on Peterson at the moment, though, just to see if he's going to come down pit road. But the way he's conserved his fuel, he's going to come down this time by. So Peterson squeezed out an extra lap. And if you're curious, we are about 40 seconds from halfway. So he may be running on fumes at the end, but I think it's very clear and obvious at this stage that Leif Peterson is going to try and one-stop this race. Don't know if you can say the same for anyone that came down a lap before. I think that would be a little bit too much to ask, but Peterson's close enough to where he might just be clutching it all the way down the back straightaway and might just go full Alexander Rossi at the 16 Indy 500 with this car. But that's what he's trying to do, without question. One stop this race and avoid the splash of dash at the end that got so many people, caught them off guard last week at Road America.
And one thing also that these cars have is they do have a fuel mapping system to where they can change how much fuel input and throttle input they can put on these race cars. So I'm pretty sure Leif Peterson is doing as much fuel strategy that he can in order to make it to the end of this race.
That would be the idea. That's what I think you would probably look at. So if you're Peterson, how do you play this? And do you bother trying to hold up Malia or Lisner, knowing that those drivers are in a different strategy than he is, knowing that if he tries to run his pace around them, it may end up causing issues because we know those two are so more apt to try and jump around this place as quick as they can. Peterson definitely trying to play a long game here to take away the first win of his PCA Sim Racing career on pit strategy.
As we're looking up through the field now, by the time William Levesque will come across the race line, he will be back up towards the front of the field, and I believe Polisek will now slot into that second position. So after that penalty, and of course with that early pit stop that he is able to have, he's going to come out and second for the time being till he has to come down for his pit stop, probably in a couple laps at least for him.
Yeah, he'll still have to come down and get fuel and service and probably end up three-stopping this race. So I would imagine Polisek, by virtue of that penalty, has all license to just go full bore the whole way through this. The problem is that he's going to be down on paces. He comes out here, one more car right alongside him. That would be the 18 of Carlos Lopez. Black and red Porsche 911 that Polisek's trying to work with. But Polasek just, I think at this point, you just have to push. You just have to try and go for broke on every lap that you run to see if you can put down something quick. And he's not been too bad as of late. Fastest lap was the first one that he put together right after the pit stop, 41.896. Polasek's fastest lap of the race, which is quick. Lopez went for a loop over in the Sunset Horseshoe right behind Michael Polasek. Lopez currently running in
21st.
24th. There we go. Yes, had to look a little bit and find it, but Lopez in the 24th position at the moment. At this point, though, as we've cleared halfway, it is time to take our iRacing Midway Race Break, which is brought to you tonight by iRacing, the world's leading online racing simulation. Developed from the beginning as a centralized racing and competition service, iRacing organizes, hosts, and officiates races on virtual tracks all around the world. iRacing is home to a wide variety of officially sanctioned series, with racing from the Australian Supercars, the Cars Tour, right here on the Podium Esports Network that you usually find on twitch.tv/Podium Esports, but is not the case tonight since we're on the iRacing Esports Network. IndyCar, IMSA, NASCAR, the World of Outlaws, and more. William Levesque, still your race leader, looking for 3 in a row to start off Series 2 of the PCA SRS. Michael Polasek got into Gresham Wagner, so the pit road penalty and is off sequence of everyone, but currently in the second position. Third at the moment belongs to the 997 of John Cook out of the Chicago region. John Cook, as he loves to point out to us, Jason Lisner runs in the 4th spot out of the First Settlers region of the PCA. John Malia out of the Metropolitan New York region is in the 5th position. Leif Peterson of the 913 of PCA SRS veteran runs in 6th. Same can be said of James Huth, who ran in Series 1. Also, Matthew Kinkis, another Series 1 driver, runs in the 8th spot at the moment. 9th is one of your highest running newcomers, Jug Metzel, and 10th is the 06 machine of Brett Holm.
Currently in the 11th position will be the likes of Christopher Pies, as right behind him in the 13th position, in the 12th position will be David Stewart. Behind him in the 13th position will be Michel Levesque, currently running right there, doing a great job inside the top 15 all night. Behind him, it's going to be James Patak. He is currently just got off a pit road, so he's going to try to work his way back up to the field as he's currently running in the 14th position. In 15th will be the likes of Charles Yao, followed by Clifton Lipple in 16th, with Jeff C. in 17th. Cameron Leslie, currently in 18th position, has gained a couple of positions at the start of the race. Followed him by in the 19th position will be Alberto Fonseca. And then rounding out your top 20, who's gained 9 positions at the start of this race, is going to be Matthew Mitchell.
Carlos Lopez runs in the 21st position in his number 18 Porsche 911 RSR. Michael Knighton, one of the steering committee members, runs in 22nd. 23rd belongs to the 14 machine of Richard Franco. Jeffrey Smith in the 30 runs in 24th. 25th and 26th are Gresham Wagner and Jonathan Schoon. They both pulled off the racetrack for the evening. 27th belongs to very brightly colored car of Samuel Banjo-Pajai. Dewey Kang runs in the 28th position. 29th belongs to the 46 of Jake Steinbrink. And 30th belongs to the 254 of Mark Hoffritz. And that will conclude tonight's iRacing Midway Race Break. With over 80 laser scan tracks and over 80,000 drivers on the service, iRacing is the original esports racing game. For more information, visit iRacing.com today.
And as a quick reminder, James Patak, the reason why he is so far back is he decided to come back down pit road to get a little bit of fuel, try to see if he can help carry him to finish out the conclusion of this race. So there's one of the drivers taking their second pit stop. So it's going to be a matter of time to see who else will also be taking a second set of
As Michael Polasek will come in for service from second. We know that he was going to have to do so in order to come back and make everything work after his pit road penalty. But this could be interesting because we talked about how some drivers may go for a three-stop strategy. Polasek is without question the driver best positioned to go after that three-stop strategy. So all eyes on the 45 to see how many spots he could gain, in particular at the very end of this race. I don't think he's going to see much return on his strategy right after he comes out of pit road, but the last 5 to 10 minutes will be all over the place.
And with that pit stop from Polasek, that will put the likes of John Koch into the second position, followed by Jason Lesnar. Will round out your top 3 currently, as Lesnar is going to have to do battle with the likes of John Malia, as well as also the likes of Leif Peterson, who's also on there. They're negotiating through lap traffic right now of Michael Knighton, as well as the likes of Jeffrey Smith as they come through NASCAR's turn 1 and 2.
They all jump through 1 and 2 and put on a pretty good show. Knighton running up here on the top side as he lets that group of Malia, Peterson, Huth and company all go past him, and we'll sort out everything here as Jeffrey Smith comes into view, and we'll see if Smith can pull off the position, see if he can get Knighton and get up into the 23rd spot.
Trying to look through the field right now, see if any other battles. Pretty much that battle for the third position is the main one going on right now for between the likes of Lesnar, Malia, and Leif Peterson. They have not given up one bit at all. A little bit of a battle for that 6th position, I believe, starting to heat up between the likes of James Huth and all, because they're going to turn 1 as almost a little before they get to the International Horseshoe.
They all sort themselves out here in pretty good shape. We're just running through the grid to try and see if there are any other battles worth noting. Chris Pies and David Stewart is a pretty good one. Those two pretty close to one another within 1 second. And same can be said for Polasek and Doug Metzel, who are together after Polasek came down for service on the pit road. Polasek now back to the 8th spot after completing his service and trying to run back up to the field. And then again, same sort of deal. And Malia and Peterson. Of note here, and I think to some degree obvious with how late he pitted compared to everybody else, Michael Polasek is the one driver who should be good to go to the end on fuel and not have to worry about saving, which is sort of what I was hinting at when I talked about how I didn't think you'd see too many returns on the strategy that he was sort of forced into with the penalty early on in this race at the beginning of this run. But I think the end of this, we know there are going to be some drivers that will have to come down for a splash of fuel to make it to the end. And there might be some like Leif Peterson who are going to try and stretch it all the way and avoid coming down pit road altogether. So Polasek, I think, stands to gain a lot from any of the drivers that have to come down and pick up fuel one more time.
Like to Leif Peterson right now, he let off on the gas like he was started doing earlier before his first pit stop, and now trying to work his way back up. He is currently running just about the same time of Malia and Liz, 5/10, maybe 4/10 of a second though. So he's not really he's saving fuel, but not also saving as much as we saw him do the first time.
Just taking a look here. I know in chat, I think there was a question of pit stop delta times and just how much time you lose on pit road. For the record, it is anywhere in the ballpark of about 30 to 40 seconds, depending on how it plays out. Most of the stops have ranged. Now, I think the quickest 4-tire stop we saw might have been from maybe Polasek himself, maybe Levesque. I can't totally tell, but anywhere between 12 to 17, 18 seconds is your pit stop time and your pit lane time. Those have all ranged from anywhere between 31 to 40 seconds. So that's the ballpark that you're looking at if you're going to try and make that work. For what it's worth, Leif Peterson last time by scored about 30 seconds back of William Levash. So if Levash tried to come down pit road for a splash of fuel and Peterson didn't, they would likely be right on top of each other when they came back out together on the racetrack. Which is all to say that this could be very, very close at the end. And, oh, by the way, gives us the chance to remind you all that the Porsche Club of America has over 3,500 events that are annually hosted across North America. Between the 10 national events and thousands of regional events, there's a PCA event for every Porsche enthusiast. PCA hosts autocross events, concours d'elegance, driver's education classes, driving tours, social events, and tech sessions. For more information, you can visit pca.org/event. And I suppose, since it is that time, since we did talk about sim racing a little bit earlier, Mr. Taylor Burris, you want to go pull our friend out of the lake? I know he's going to be mad at you for doing it, but it's about that time.
Oh, well, it is about that time. Let's pull him out of Lake Lloyd here at Daytona. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to cue the Chuck.
It is indeed time to cue the Chuck as we bring you tonight's trivia question from the Porsche Club of America. And as always, we've got one of those coveted PCA hood badges to give away to the winner, along with Chuck's undying love and affection as always. There are plenty of regions represented in Series 2 of the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series. I think somewhere in the ballpark of 25 in this series alone. What we want to know tonight is the region that has the most drivers in Series 2 of the PCA SRS. Be the first to name that in chat, and you will be going home with a real badge as we ride along John Malia.
John Malia trying to get by the likes of Jason Lisner before they get into turn one, but can't quite make it work for him. He's going to have to find a way through the S's. We see Lisner pulling away from him as they get to the International Horseshoe. Late into the braking zone, Malia is going to go as he tries to close the gap on Lisner, but can't quite make it work for him there. You'll have to try to utilize a little bit of different ways to try to find a different line to get by Lisner or even close the gap on him as they go through the dogleg to head towards the Western Horseshoe.
As we have a winner already, I made sure to be a little bit nice and hand it to everybody a little bit earlier on. If you were paying attention, we said it. It is the Peach State region of the PCA that has the most participants in Series 2 of Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series action. Daytona. They've got 9 drivers out of the field of nearly 60. So just about 1 in every 6 drivers in this field hails from the Peach State region. And not a huge surprise, Taylor, at that. They're the ones who have had the long-standing Peach State League for Porsche Sim Racing in iRacing. Been around for a long, long time and been a big driver of this series from the national standpoint as well. So this is the part where we get to tip our cap to everybody in the Peach State region for all the work that they've done over the years to help us get to this point of Porsche Club of America Sim Racing competition.
And most definitely, and we like to thank them for coming out here, helping this series put on a great show. And I gotta say, they've always got some of the best drivers in this series right now. As our race leader has come off a pit road to complete his final pit stop here tonight, William Levesque is now coming through the pit road exit. Have to be careful. This is probably one of the most difficult pit road exits that you have to navigate because you're just so close to that barrier, and it's very easy to hit that wall and end up ruining your car before you even get out onto the racetrack.
How interesting that is that Levesque decided to not even worry about trying to go one stop it and just said, you know what, I'm going to go try and 2 stop and make sure that we take care of business early. And he said as much in his interview last week at Road America. He said he didn't think it'd be possible to 1 stop this race unless you just gave up so much time that it wasn't worth it. We'll see what Leif Peterson can do at the end of this race. See whether or not William ends up being right about that. Peterson about 32, 33 seconds back of the lead now, which now belongs to John Cope, incidentally, and not Levesque. It's been for a good chunk of this night. But Levesque coming in very early, deciding that if I have to pit, I'm going to make sure that it's early enough to where I can make up some of the time on track with my speed, and I won't get caught out by a splash and dash like I think some of these drivers in the top 10, if not a lot of them, are going to end up taking.
Well, we're going to see if John Koch will respond to that, as he's currently going to be our new race leader. As he's going to come across the line, is he going to stay out? He is going to stay out another lap here, but not for long, though, as William Levesque is closing in as best that he can, as he's coming off of NASCAR turns 4 as well. So when he comes across the line, we'll have to take a look, see what the timing and scoring is going to show for him, as he's now coming across the line right now. The time difference between the two drivers, 10 seconds. So there's still a little bit of a gap between him that he's going to have to make up in these final 15 minutes.
Even less than that, now down to 12 minutes and 40 seconds and change in round 3 of Series 2 of the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series, as we take a look at David Stewart in a pretty good battle with Chris Pies of the 16. They go side by side through the tri-oval. Stewart's going to have that run on the outside. Pies is going to have the run on the inside. Stewart, one of the Upper Canada region drivers, trying to work his way around the pink pig of Pies, but won't get the chance to do it here, so he'll fall back in line and try and gather it back up. Make another run at Pies to take a final spot in the top 10. This battle currently for 10th and 11th.
Can't quite make it work through the International Horseshoe either, so he's going to have to lose a little bit of time actually right there as well. Got 2 car lengths separating the two as they go through the dogleg as they make the run to the Western Horseshoe.
They slide on through the Western Horseshoe, still nose to tail are Stewart and Pies. Pies has the spot. Stewart wants the spot. A top 10 spot on the line here and a few extra points as well. I think more importantly, as we work our way towards the end of the series and the extra awards that you get for finishing a little bit higher up the totem pole, but most importantly, all trying to chase after that day at the Porsche Experience Centers in Atlanta or Los Angeles. 2 incredible facilities dedicated to all things Porsche here in North America, and a lot of fun. I think Billy Smith could attest. The Series 1 champion had a great day in Atlanta and got to bring along a lot of his friends from the Peach State region who were there that day, it being their home turf. Had a great time there. The winner of Series 2 is going to get that same treatment a little bit later on this year.
Taking a look now on Matthew Kikis. He's currently running into the 6th position right now. He just got by Leif Peterson a lap earlier now and has his eyes set on that 5th position of James Huth in the number 12 Porsche, who is trying to keep that gap between them as best that he can as they make the run into the Western Horseshoe. It is still going to be the likes of Huth holding on right now. A little bit faster than Matthew Kikis, but not by much as they make the run to turn 6. And as we're closing in to almost, I believe, just almost 10 minutes left to go in the race. We still have about 50 seconds before we get to that. As it is crunch time for some of these drivers, and keeping an eye on that race lead between Koch and Levesque. It is down by a second as we take it away, as Levesque is now 9 seconds back.
Levesque has gained a little bit of time on Koch as Charlie Yao and David Stewart have come in for service, and I wonder if we're going to see more drivers begin to make that jump onto pit road. Certainly better to take Levesque's route and get in early if you think you have to do it. But the question for these drivers will be whether or not they think they have to do it, whether or not they can go all the way on this run of fuel, or if they're going to have to come in for a splash and dash. It's a topic that we talked about a lot tonight, and it is at this point in the race, as Malia is going to be the car that we ride along with, have to deal with as Matthew Kikis decides to come down pit road and not get called out. He'll be the first one after Levesque to really jump after it from the top 10, along with James Huth, who comes in as well to try and curb the effects of a splash and dash and make sure they get enough fuel to finish.
And Leif Peterson is back at it again, letting off the gas way before he gets even to turn 1. Doug Hetzel was easily able to get by him before they get into the turn 1 now, as he's starting to try to pull away through the International Horseshoe, makes a little bit of a mistake, but is able to recover from there and pull away.
This is going to be interesting. James Huth is going to come out right with Chris Pine, and I think that might be James Patak. So Pines and Patak and Huth and Kikis, all names that we've heard together for a good chunk of this evening, all running nose to tail and on different pit strategies as well. Also of note, Leif Peterson, who stayed out longer than anybody else in that first run, is within that 30-second window that he needs to be in order to make his strategy work. He's 20 6.8 seconds back. Got a little bit of wriggle room. Does the 913, but again, it's all going to come down, I think, to how the vest runs everything.
As well as the likes of John Koch as well. I mean, he's still going to be staying out on the racetrack here. Let's see if he decides to come down pit road. No, he's going to stay out another lap here as we are now approaching just shy, well, actually 8.5 minutes left on the clock.
So if anybody else is to come down pit road, Peterson would be in good shape, I think, for P3 at the moment, given that Levesque and Polisek have come down pit road twice already. They're both ahead of Peterson. They both are good to go to the end of this race. So that's your virtual top three, I would say. Levesque, Polisek, and Peterson. If the rest of the drivers in the top six cannot make it to the end on fuel. But that's the question. It's an if. If they all have to come down pit road, that'll be your top three. But you've got John Koch in there, Jason Lisner, John Malia, Doug Metzel, too, all who are still on one stop, still waiting to see if they're going to make a second anytime soon within the final 7 minutes of tonight's race.
I tell you what, Jason Lisner and John Malia have not been able to separate from each other for this entire race, and they are still going to be battling it out as they come out of turn 6 into NASCAR's turn 1 and 2. Lisner's able to pull a little bit of a gap, though, from Malia as they're coming out of NASCAR turn 2 down the Daytona super stretch, making the run to the bus stop chicane right now. Lisner trying to see if he can throw off the draft from Malia, but here he comes as they approach the bus stop chicane. Into the braking zone they will go. Trying to keep it hitting those curbs where they can help get as much maximum speed as I think Lisner might have went a little bit over the curbing. That might cost him a little bit of time as they come into the NASCAR 3 and 4.
Might cost him a little bit of time, but in the meantime, take a look at what Malia is doing. He's just sitting behind Lisner and making sure he can get every bit of draft off the back of Lisner's number 92 machine. Not necessarily looking to pass him, but looking to try and conserve a little bit of fuel. Could end up being a very smart play on Malia's part, depending on how the final few minutes of this race shake out. We're starting to get to the point where drivers are going to come in. It was 16 laps for a lot of these drivers on this first stint. A lot of them have completed 15 already. So in theory, we could see some of them come down as early as this lap. But this is where we're going to start to see drivers either come down for the splash that they didn't want to have to, or try and stretch it for the end and either make it or end up running out of fuel maybe on the last lap of the race.
Well, John Koch, though, has decided to come down pit road. He will blink, and he's not going to be able to make it. But he was able to stay out in front of Leif Peterson. So that is going to be a very interesting strategy call that he is able to make. Let's see if he's going to have enough fuel in order to stay in front of Leif Peterson before the checker flag comes here. As right now, though, it will put William Levesque, Jason Lisner, and John Malia now your new top three when they come across the line.
Levesque now in very good shape to go 3 for 3 in this series. Did a nice job to come down early. Figured if he was going to have to pit twice, let me make sure that second one's early enough to where I can build up a gap on everyone else in this field. And he's done just that. Clear of Lisner by just over 7 seconds with less than 5 minutes to go. So Levesque is just in execution mode at this point. All he needs to do is hit his marks, and he should have another victory. But Lisner and Malia fighting for podium positions, but also fighting nearly empty fuel tanks. Can they stretch at the distance and go all the way? No for Lisner. Lisner will come down. Malia using the effects of the draft to stay out one more lap. But at this point, he would need at least 2 and probably a third in order to make it. If he does, more power to him, but I think that's going to be really tough to try and stretch this 19, 20 laps. That's hard to do.
It's going to be very difficult for him to do, but if he's able to do it, more power to him. He's going to be trying his best, though. But he does have a little bit of a gap from Michael Polisek. Not much, but he can conserve a little bit of fuel to try to help get him to the end of this race as we are closing in to 4 minutes left to go on the clock.
Rolling around into that final 3.5 minutes of this race. Lisner comes back out onto the racetrack in the 9th position. So he'll finish towards the back half of the top 10 and end up, I believe, pretty close to where he started tonight's race in 11th. He'll gain a few spots, but Certainly, I don't think the finish that he wanted, given how close he was to the front. Now, Malia, though, that's the one that we have to pay attention to at the moment. He comes down into the back straightaway, into the bus stop, and the question on everyone's mind is whether or not he will pit and cede second to Michael Polisek or not this time by, or can he try and stretch it all the way and get 2 more laps out of this? That's about what we should have left in this race if he can make it all the way.
Keeping an eye on John Malia. He's getting ready to come towards pit entrance. Will he decide to come down pit road or will he stay out? The answer is yes. He is coming down pit road. He will not have enough fuel to make it, as Michael Polisek will now move into that second position.
So Polisek will go to second. John Cook will go into the third spot. He was able to come out ahead of everybody, Peterson included, and Peterson might be able to stretch it all the way, but I think he might have tried to save a little bit too much. I think the lack of pace has backfired, and he's going to be 1 spot short of the podium as it stands, and still in a position where he'll have to conserve a little bit to make sure that he can make it to the end, whereas everybody else around him is going to be able to just go for it. So he may end up losing another position here. But for Levesque, he's going to get the white flag next time by. 2 minutes and change left to go in this race. So we'll get the white flag when he comes back around, and we'll have 1 more lap after this one till we finish off tonight's race. Levesque, barring the unexpected, is about to become a 3-time winner in the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series. And Polisek, after the madness at the beginning of the race, after serving the penalty, pretty nice recovery to be running in P2 at the moment.
Very good recovery indeed, as well as John Koch, who's been running inside the top 3 all night long. He's going to come home with that possible final spot on the podium right now, but I got to give a good pat on the back for John Malia. Even though he's going to get right at the top 5th position right now, he's able to currently hold off Matthew Kikis for that final top 5 spot as they're going through NASCAR's turns 1 and 2.
They all roll through 1 and 2 and all try and sort themselves out. As you got Patak, you got Huth, you got Kikis in there, all making their way towards the bus stop. Patak with pretty big run on Huth. Not enough to get through him around the bus stop, though. So he'll have 1 more lap to try and get after it as Levesque has taken the white flag at Daytona.
Now the question is going to be, how will the rest of the field come out as we try to see what will happen to that battle between John Malia and Matthew Kikis for the final spot of the top 5, or the top 5 right now. They're going through the S's coming out of turn 1 and making the run to the International Horseshoe. Malia's got about a 2-car length gap, though, but a little bit of lap traffic in front of him.
A little lap traffic, but not too much trouble, I think, for Malia. And just a bit of defense, I think, that he needs to play more than anything else, as this battle between this back group at the top 10 comes to a head right at the end of this race. They really haven't been able to split themselves all night, and it's a phrase that I almost think I've overused this evening, but this is about the way they started, and they haven't really been running too much farther apart than this for a good chunk of the evening as they come through NASCAR 1 and 2, make their way towards the bus stop. But it's all William Levesque at the front of the field. He'll come across the start-finish line, flash the lights, and win round 3 of the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series at Daytona International Speedway. Going to be all Polisek to come back after the penalty and come home P2. Very impressive drive for Polisek, probably his best of the season. John Koch will come home with another podium, his second, I think, in 3 races, and end up P3. Leif Peterson is going to be 4th. And then Malia, I think, is going to be in good shape. Kikis tries to flash the headlights, but no crazy incidents here. It's going to be all Malia and Kikis and Huth trying to hang on to the spot as Patak goes to the outside and tries to get over the line, but won't. And Lisner tried to do the same with, I believe, a few lap cars. Had a little bit of fun there at the end, but everybody staying at the same spots at the end of the race.
What a great race indeed, and great strategy we saw by several drivers to try to get a good finishing position. And I tell you what, Daytona always ceases to put on a great show every time.
Credit to Luis Peterson as Chris Pius comes across the line to finish his race. Peterson did make it on one stop, just didn't have enough pace to get up into the podium like I know he wanted to. As Metzel will slow it down to come across the line as David Stewart finishes. Michel Levesque, father of race winner William, will come across the line. Just looking at the final few drivers to finish on the lead lap. Charles Yao will be the final one to come across the line out of turn 4 here and come across with that Gulf-inspired scheme to finish off race 3 of Series 2 of the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series. And that, I think, should wrap up everyone so far as I can tell. So, figure at this point, probably not a bad idea to go through the full field rundown and tell where your favorite driver finished as we congratulate William Levesque one more time, victorious for the 3rd race in a row to start off this campaign in Series 2, the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series. Michael Polisek got into Gresham Liner at the very beginning and had to serve a pit road penalty, but came back from that to finish in second. A very strong drive for the Northern New Jersey region driver. John Koch and the 997 finished in P3 to round out the podium. Out of the Chicago region, Leif Peterson one stop this race, saved enough fuel to do it, was the only driver in the field outside of Carlos Lopez and Michael Knighton, and Richard Franco and Mark Humphreys to do it. But the only driver, I believe, on the lead lap to make it work just didn't quite have enough pace to get up to the very, very front. He'll come home first car off the podium in 4th. John Malia finishes off the top 5. Matthew Kikis finished in 6th. James Huth came home 7th this evening. James Patat was 8th. 9th belonged to Jason Lisner, and Christopher Page finished in 10th.
Doug Metzel will come home in the 11th position, followed by David Stewart in 12th, with Michel Levesque coming home in 13th. Clifton Lippo will come home in the 14th position, followed by the light of Charles Yao, the last car on the lead lap, in 15th. Jeff Seeds will be the first car one lap down in 16th position, followed by Alberto Fonseca in 17th. Cameron Leslie will come home in 18th position, followed by Carlos Lopez in 19th. And rounding out your top 20, gaining 10 positions when this race was over, the number 30 of Jeffrey Smith.
21st position in this race belonged to Michael Knighton. Matthew Mitchell finished in 22nd. Brad Holmes came home in the 23rd position, and 24th belonged to Richard Franco. Chabot Bagnopatia finished in 25th. Dewey Kang came home 26th. 27th, where you would have found Gresham Wagner, came off early after all the madness at the beginning of this race. Jonathan Schum finished in 28th. 29th was Mark Humphreys, and Jake Steinbrink finished in the 30th position. And that concludes tonight's full field rundown for this Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series event at Daytona. And we'll bring him back into the booth this time. We said we might talk to him at the end of tonight's broadcast. Here we are, William Levesque, once again bringing it home for the Rennsport region, a 3-time winner in the PCA SRS. And you spoke last week about how you didn't think you would be able to one-stop this race. You elected to go for the 2-stop, but unlike everyone else, you came in very, very early, about 10 minutes to go, I think, to get your final fuel run in and get your final pit stop in. Let's talk a little bit about the decision behind that, as opposed to maybe waiting a little bit later to get your final splash of fuel.
Well, the whole idea was just track position. Instead of going full fuel twice and losing a lot of time in the first stint in the pits, I just split the strategy in 2. So that way you have 2 short pit stops instead of a really long one and a very short one.
Even it out, short pit, gain the track position, and end up in a pretty decent spot. So, very solid run once again. Daytona didn't seem like it threw you any curveballs, but will Watkins Glen be a little bit different? It's a little bit narrower, and there's certainly far more elevation changes. What do you expect out of the Glen when we're there next Friday night?
Fuel preservation, I guess. I don't really know right now. I haven't done any laps, but I think it's gonna be very similar to Road America, where we'll have to save fuel to make it on a one stop.
have a feeling that you're probably right about that. So, William, before we let you go, as always, take a moment to say thank you to everyone who's made it possible for you.
Yeah, SimiCube, V-Racing, SimLab, the guys at NX. I had a few teammates watching my my Discord stream. Night. So, and yeah, I guess that's about it. Good job to my dad as well. You did okay today. And yeah.
William, from everyone at the PCA and Podium Esports, congratulations on your victory in tonight's race, and we look forward to seeing you at Watkins Glen next Friday night.
All right, cheers.
William Yavask, your winner once again, and gets it done at Daytona. And we slide from your three-time winner in this series to Michael Polasek, who finishes in P2 after having to serve a penalty very early on in this race. An impressive drive for the number 45. He is with Taylor Burris.
Here with Michael Polasek. And Michael, you've been all over the place here tonight after that penalty, but was able to climb back up. Tell us how some of that strategy work was able to help you work your way back up and getting into the podium position of second.
Well, before this race, I knew that we had to stop twice. So during the drive-through, I pit in, filled the car up with fuel. So that way, I really only needed to do one more stop and just carry on as normal. After that, I just tried to drive the wheels off the car and just tried to do the best I can.
Well, with that, it definitely did work out for you. Did you think maybe if you didn't get involved with that penalty, you might have had a shot at Levesque?
Definitely. Because Daytona is such a draft track, I think we would have both been fighting really hard for a good amount of the race, I think. And it probably was just going to come down to who was going to exit the pits in the final stint. And it was going to be a lot of fun then.
Well, with that, we're getting ready to go to Watkins Glen next week. How confident do you feel about taking the fight to Levesque and seeing if you can find any way to try to work your way up through the field that next week?
With Watkins Glen being such a draft track, if we need to two stop, I think we're gonna see a lot of really close pack racing. So I definitely think that a lot of people, not just myself, are gonna have a pretty big shot at beating Levesque then. But it's gonna be close, and it's probably gonna be some really good racing.
Well, we look forward to seeing you at the next round at Watkins Glen. With that, is there anyone you would like to thank before we let you go?
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to seriously apologize to Gresham Wagner for my overly opportunistic move. I'd also like to thank my sponsors, Grand Prix New York, GT Hub, the Porsche Club of America for putting this on, and the Northern New Jersey region for giving me all the support they've given me throughout this season. And I'd also like to thank you guys for the incredible amount of broadcasting work that you put into these.
Well, we like to thank you as well for putting on such great races for us to call for you here in the Porsche Club of America races that we do for you. And we look forward to seeing you next week at Watkins Glen.
All right. Thank you very much.
That was Michael Polasek finishing in second position. And with that, our Mr. James Pike has caught up with our driver finishing in third, Mr. John Koch.
Indeed, out of the Chicago region, second podium this year, and it nearly was 3 for 3 for him, if not for a mishap from Gresham Wagner last week at Road America. But you get back on the podium tonight, John. I know you're happy about that, and just take us through what the race was like from your perspective.
Yeah, first I'd like to go back really quick to the Road America and apologize to Gresham. He's really this is 2 in a row. He's had some bad luck. I've ruined both of our chances at Road America for could have been a podium and probably a close finish. But I guess that's part of racing and it happens. As far as this race goes, I was really happy with the result. Daytona is not one of my stronger tracks. It was definitely going to be a 2 pit stop race this round. Didn't have to worry about fuel saving, which was very nice. And just overall, a really good race.
And I think after the craziness of last week, to be able to piece it back together and build confidence, especially going to Watkins Glen, I have to believe with the topography changes, the changes in elevation, Road America and Watkins Glen race in a relatively similar manner. So have to believe you're looking forward to next week in particular, knowing how good you were at Road America last week.
Yeah, absolutely. Road America, like I said the first week, it is my favorite track, and Watkins Glen is a similar type of track, and very much looking forward to it. I haven't checked the fuel situation. I don't know if we're going to need 2 pits or if we can get it done in 1, but we'll have to practice and find out. But it should be a good race.
And as always, before we let you go, we'll take a moment to let you thank everyone who makes it possible for you in the 997.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Jim Hemmig and Doug Atkinson, of course, and all the help they do around here and make this happen. It's really great. I'd like to thank you guys once again for putting this on, and it's fun for us racers, but it's really great for everybody else out there. Get a chance to see what we do, and that's about all I got.
Well, John, congratulations on your podium finish from everyone at the PCA and Podium Esports. And we look forward to seeing you in New York 1 week from tonight.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Sean Cook finishes P3 tonight. And I suspect at this point, we are in good shape to burrow into Burris's burrow of final thoughts.
Well, one of the major final thoughts is, can anyone have anything for the likes of William Levesque? We saw some drivers take a shot at him early on tonight at Daytona, but due to the fact of mistakes happening, it cost them the shot at taking home the checker flag and ending the streak of William Levesque. Some of the drivers are feeling confident about the next round at Watkins Glen of trying to dethrone the likes of William Levesque, but only time will tell. And I tell you what, that is just the main and the biggest gem for this entire season so far.
Can anyone stop William Levesque? The only driver with a pro license in this field has been very successful in the first 3 weeks, and will have a crack at 4 for 4 next week at Watkins Glen. But we got a week off until then. And if you're interested in following us at Podium Esports a little bit more throughout the week before we get to Watkins Glen, just the one event for you this week, but a very, very big one. The second special event for Podium Esports of 2019, the Podium Esports Southern 500. The Class D stock car is going to head to Darlington for 367 laps, 500 miles with full day-to-night transitions. It should be incredibly entertaining. Your last chance qualifiers will be in the afternoon on September 2nd before the big show, the big race. 6 p.m. this Monday night, Labor Day, for those of you in the United States, September 2nd, right here on the iRacing Esports Network on YouTube. We're going to broadcast the Podium Esports Southern 500. And then we'll get to Watkins Glen, same time, same place, same people next week as the Porsche Club of America returns for round 4 of Series 2 from New York's Thunder Road. We'll kick that off September 6th, 9:15 p.m. Eastern start right here on the iRacing Esports Network for that broadcast as well. It is time for us to say goodbye and good night from the World Center of Racing. So, for DJ Lyon, for Gary Sexton, for John Theodore at Podium Esports, for Doug Atkinson, Jim Hemmig, and everybody at the Porsche Club of America, for tonight's producer, Cisco Scamuza, and for my colleague up in the booth, Mr. Taylor Burrish, I am James Pike, the voice of Podium Esports. Thank you so much for watching tonight's podcast of the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Series. We look forward to seeing you next Friday night from Watkins Glen.